Last week, I discussed why I think Critical Role's heist cannot be called a heist. I will link it in the eye up there in case you want to watch it, but after talking so much about what Critical Role did wrong, it is only fair that I spend some time talking about how to do it right. So, welcome to Arcadian, this is the DM's Den, and today we discuss how to run a heist in D&D. So, definitions first. What is a heist? We can search for the official meaning of the word in a dictionary, but for us at the gaming table, that is not helpful at all. What we should be asking is, if we tell our players we're going to run a heist, what will be their expectations? What does a player fantasize with when thinking of a good heist? I'm willing to bet they'll think of heist movies like Ocean's 11. Now, heist movies can be very different from one another, and some of them break the mold in quite interesting ways. For example, Ant-Man is a heist movie but with superheroes. Inception is a heist within people's dreams. There are always twists and quirks, but what do all of those movies have in common within their underlying structure? That is what we should be mindful of when designing a heist. In my opinion, and you're welcome to disagree and share your own ideas in the comments down in the Underdark, a heist is a theft with three very important factors. Number one, it targets one very specific thing, such as a very valuable document, a vital piece of information, all the money inside of a casino vault, or even a person. Even before breaking in, the thieves already know exactly what they want to steal. Number two, the security around the target is so tight or dangerous that the thieves need to devise a plan. It is not by accident that so many heist movies spend almost as much time on the planning phase as they do in the actual score. Coming up with the plan and seeing if it works or not is part of the fun. Number three, it might be a bit obvious, but you don't want to get caught. The most successful heists are the ones where you get in and out undetected, or at the very least you are only discovered near the end, just in time for your getaway, or being discovered is actually part of your plan, to make a distraction for example. The reason why Critical Role's heist didn't feel like a heist to me was because there was no number 2 and 3. For starters, they didn't know anything about the inside of the museum, so they were running blind. There was no surveillance, no intel gathering, no blueprints, and no masterful plan we were dying to discover if it would work out or not. And they announced their presence to the owner of the museum even before the heist began, so there was no danger of being found out, only of dying if they failed to notice the traps, which made the whole mission identical to a dungeon exploration. Each of these three ingredients is very important to maintain the fantasy of a heist. If you don't have number 1, it is not a heist, it's a regular burglary. If you don't have number 2, it's not a heist, it's a dungeon crawl. And if you don't have number 3, it's not a heist, it's a bloodbath. And there's nothing wrong with those three, but if you tell your players you're going to run a heist and don't let them plan or give them opportunities to be stealthy or send them in blind, you might unconsciously kill the fun for some of them if there is a misalignment of expectations. So, when presenting your players a heist scenario, be mindful to fulfill these three requirements. Be clear about what is the goal, allow them to devise an informed plan, and use detection as the consequence of failure instead of death. This should help you conceptualizing your heist. What about designing it? For that, I find it useful to break down the heist into 4 phases, since that is the structure that most of them seem to follow, and the one yours will probably boil down to as well. There is the intelligence phase, the planning phase, the score, and the getaway. The intelligence phase is when the characters gather the information needed to devise a strong plan, plus anything that might increase their chances, including materials and equipment. The most important intel is about security. This will likely include retrieving the building's blueprints, surveilling the guard schedules and patrolling routes, finding where all the cameras or arcane wards are, maybe even get access to the building by posing as a new employee and scouting it from the inside. Maybe they don't know what the target's location is and need to find that out. Maybe they don't even know what the target actually is exactly and need more details. This stage can mostly be directed by the players, but even so, it might be helpful for you to compile a small cheat sheet containing all the relevant information regarding the security, including holes you planted on purpose for the players to explore. That way, whenever your players try to gather intel in a way you didn't anticipate, you can just quickly browse the information available and determine what is appropriate. Kinda like how the random rumor tables are used nowadays. Blueprints are great assets for this stage. They're very informative, not to say a pretty evocative handout, and you'd have to design it anyway during your prep. Try to include multiple ways to get to the target, to give your players more choices when planning, much like what I discussed in my video about D&D lessons from Assassin's Creed. I will link that video up there, and I highly recommend you check it out. Due to the nature of the game, it is loaded with great advice for heist missions. You don't need to reveal all the secrets in the blueprint. It might have the layout of the building but not the traps, or maybe it has the traps but not the equivalent of security cameras. This will encourage your players to try to gather that information in other ways, which will only improve the experience. However, part of the fun in a heist is planning how to beat all the security measures, and then go doing that. And that can only be done if they know what the security measures are. There is a huge trap you must avoid here. Don't be stingy with the information you give to your players. Your instinct as a DM might be to hide important information behind skill checks and, if the roll fails, reveal nothing. This is because we are used to thinking that overcoming a hard challenge will make the reward feel better. However, do not lose sight that here the challenge is executing the plan, not coming up with it. Hide information behind the skill wall, and not only will you harm the player's enjoyment, but you will also destroy your own scenario as well, because you'll send a subliminal message saying that making plans or gathering information to do so doesn't actually work. That is not to say that you should give all the information for free, but remember that the characters are expected to succeed at gathering it. Besides, there are other ways to make the investigation challenging, and most importantly, fun. The consequence of a failure can be only getting part of the information, or getting it all but encoded. Maybe they arise suspicion during the investigation and the security gets tighter. The planning phase assumes that the characters have already gathered all the information they need and devised their plan for executing the heist. However, it is also possible that this phase alternates with the intelligence phase back and forth. Maybe they get some information that allow them to devise the skeleton of the plan, but then they notice something else that they didn't know much about, so they go back to investigate that a bit more. Of course, for a planning phase to be meaningful in any way, it assumes the players are free to choose between several ways to execute the heist. This demands some attention from the DM during prep to make sure there are no correct ways to perform the score, that the design is not linear but more like a sandbox, and that the players had the access to enough information to make meaningful choices. If this sounds familiar, you must be imagining things. Then we come to the score itself. Hopefully the players have made their plans, and now all that is left to do is see it through. Usually, this comes as a sequence of skill checks, minimal to no combat, maybe a puzzle or two, but skill checks definitely take the spotlights. Lots of stealth checks. For most DMs though, one failed stealth check means detection, and once that happens, the covert operation will be over. That is not the proper way to run a heist. It is telling your players that you have to succeed in a lot of stealth checks without failing even once, which is almost statistically impossible, so you might as well give up on being stealthy and go murder hobo. What we want to do here is something like the failing forward technique, or Matt Colville's many fail states. The idea is that one failure doesn't mean everything is over, but rather that you're either closer to detection, and here you can use something like a meter to show your players how many fails they can make before being detected, or a complication arises, and this can be anything from the cameras didn't see you but caught your shadow, so now they're sending a patrol, to the guard doesn't believe you and goes to talk with their boss, or even you gain a point of exhaustion. In my opinion, the best application of this technique comes when a failure doesn't end the game, but instead provides a new challenge, almost like a quick minigame, which you must beat or solve or deal with in order to keep going without raising suspicion. In this way, a failure actually generates more fun, stimulates your players' creativity, and creates a richer story to tell later. About complications. One other type of problems which might arise during a heist are plot twists or gotcha moments. These are pre-planned obstacles that the DM never gave the opportunity for the players to know about during the intelligence phase. Stuff like a new arcane lock system containing the target, or a change in the location of the heist target, or the strange coincidence that the guard's patrol pattern has changed specifically today. In essence, something to catch the players off guard. Be aware though that these don't work as well in D&D as they do in movies. In D&D, your players are not passive audience members that enjoy being surprised and get excited to see how the heroes are going to turn the situation around. In D&D, they will feel like their carefully devised plans were just ruined. The message this sends to the players is, aha, your plans mean nothing in the end, your efforts are in vain, you cannot predict all my obstacles. Use these carefully. If you want unpredicted challenges in a heist, the player's failed rolls alone will provide enough of them, which will feel more organic too, because they will result directly from the character's actions, and not from some deus ex machina. I wouldn't go as far as saying that these should never be used, but for me, the only occasions where they are justifiable is when they're the result of severe failures during the player's intelligence gathering, and reflect the character's lack of knowledge about the security. Either stuff the players failed repeatedly at, or that they never bothered to investigate. That are things that resulted directly from their actions before the heist began. For example, if they tried to infiltrate the place before and were caught doing it, maybe the security is reinforced as a consequence. Finally, the getaway phase. If the heist goes well, they can get in and out undetected. But in case things go south, your players will need to run. I like to have something prepared just in case the scenario unfurls. Escape sequences like in GTA, where you ride bikes to get away from the police. Maybe this escape can even be part of your players' planning, like if they brought police uniforms with them to get away under disguise. For these sequences, one of the methods that I use the most are skill challenges, which I learned from Matt Colville. He has a video about it, I recommend you check it out. That is all I had to say about heists, for now at least. This is not supposed to be a rigid structure, so use these phases interchangeably as you see fit, and add your own if you feel that mine are overly simplistic. I'm sorry if you were expecting a video for players this week, but I didn't want to leave my rant about Critical Role like that without contributing with some constructive ideas. I hope you liked it, and if you did, check out my other videos for DMs too, if you didn't already. I'm sure you'll find something to your liking there as well. Thank you for watching. I'm the first Arcadian, and there's a 95-pound Chinese man with $160 million behind this door.